Welcome to Technology and Education Today. I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford.
And today we're talking about what to look for when you select an online school for a high school student. And one of the key things I think that you need to really be aware of is whether the school is accredited.
Very important. You want to make sure that whatever coursework the students are going through, they actually have an outcome. There is some type of paperwork that will be supported if the child wants to go on for higher education or just be recognized within a business industry job.
Accreditation assures you that the school is recognized as
viable.
As a school that's producing quality instruction or offering quality instruction and has the resources necessary to allow the student to learn what is being taught and to be successful.
And meeting specific standards that have already been set, with whether we're talking about by the state or whatever entity, maybe the accrediting agency.
Right, yes, and basically...
And a lot of them are not, which is very interesting.
Yeah, basically there are, I think, 6 regional accrediting agencies for both colleges and secondary schools, elementary schools. And these are things like the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools,
there's one up in New England,
the Middle States Association, and places like that. And if you check the school's website that you're considering, you should look under accreditation and see where the school received its accreditation from, and
check the accrediting agency as well to make sure that the information offered is honest.
Yes,
truthful.
Make certain that the accrediting agency is legitimate, because any organization can set themselves up or set itself up as an accrediting organization.
And claim it's accredited when in truth it's not.
Right. So you could get a group of
I'm sure no one would do
online
that,
schools. Yes, they would. You can get a group of online schools get together and say, well, let's start the Association for the Accreditation of Online Schools, and say, okay, you're accredited, you're accredited, you're accredited, and then put that on the on their website. So that's a possibility, because in the United States...
Let's hope people don't do that. There is the reality that there people will.
Yeah,
but
in the United States...
Play it safe. It's your child's education.
The government does not do accreditation of schools. Private agencies do accreditation of schools, as opposed in Europe.
You're talking about higher education.
As opposed, well, higher education or
online.
Or secondary education. In Europe, for instance, it's the government that accredits schools, but in the United States, it's private accrediting agencies. But the next thing to think about is whether or not online education is going to be a good fit.
Very good point. Not everyone is successful within an online environment.
Right.
For example, the need for self-regulation.
And self-regulation, meaning that the student is able to plan for him or herself a schedule of study and
be successful, meet specific deadlines that are set.
And this is not always all that easy in an online school, because you do not necessarily have an instructor looking at you face to face, and you don't meet this person in school. You also don't have direct pressure from other students to help you with self regulation. Another thing to consider is, does the student want to go to an online school simply because he or she does not want to get up early in the morning and go to school? And this seems like a good way of getting out of that. So that's probably not the best reason to go to attend an online school.
I would fight that statement. It's not necessarily a bad reason.
Okay.
But that's coming from someone who likes to sleep late.
Yeah, she likes to sleep late.
So you hear.
And...
well, when you're knocking on my door at conferences, would you
yes.
mind waking up, please?
Yes, it's time for the first meeting. And but the other thing is, where online education is not only a good fit, but in many cases a necessary fit, is for students who are serious athletes in high school. And a lot of the time...
Athletes have to work for a living in order to ensure that the rent is paid?
Well, then you would not necessarily have the money for the tuition for the online school. But a student athlete is somebody where you frequently encounter that there are athletic events that they have to participate in that take place over the weekends. And the weekends extend from Friday, Saturday, Sunday to Monday, and maybe even to Tuesday, which would mean that they would miss classes in a face-to-face school environment. So in that case, online instruction is a very, very viable alternative, but with the same constraint that the student attending has to be able to self-regulate, participate in those classes, and not simply say, oh, well, I've got to go practice. I think I'm not going to study today. I'm not going to study. I'll just do it tomorrow, do it the day after
well, and
tomorrow.
there is the consideration that within a face-to-face class, there is significant socialization occurring within the class environment. Classroom issues may come up that need to be managed by the instructor. Within an online environment, those type of issues aren't happening. There is the need for the student to be able to focus and get the work done, but the work that needs to be done may be more quickly addressed within an online environment, because the other issues, you have those, let's say high school, 45 minutes, and part of the time is spent with menial labor tasks like attendance, part of the time is spent with classroom management concerns. So a lot of that time is taken away within a face-to-face environment that is not a necessary component to address within an online environment.
Another thing...
So it takes less time to meet the same standards, one might suggest.
Well, it's kind of tricky, because an idea is that you can, as a student, you can work at your own pace.
Right.
And
if you get the concept, if you complete the assignment, then you can move on without waiting for everybody else.
True, but what happens then is that you might decide that your own pace is slower than somebody else's own pace, and within the online course, you could have deadlines set by the online teacher where assignments must be submitted. And depending which school you are attending, some may give a grace period and others may not, and say, well, you worked at your own pace, but you have 1 week within that you can work within your own pace to get that assignment in. So you can work 2 hours a day on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, and not do anything Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Or you may opt not to do anything until Friday and try and jam everything in, and you may not be able to do everything, and then you would have a real problem.
Well, that's absolutely true.
You certainly would have a problem in my college courses that I teach. Well, another thing...
Well, for example, I learn at a much slower rate. I like to sit there and think about it, reflect upon it. So if I'm reading something, if I'm learning something new, I learn at a slower pace because it's new to me. I want to think about the information. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily a slow person.
Well, that would be something...
But I'm a slow learner. I take my time. I want to take my time.
That would be something that,
that's a personal preference.
If you're investigating an online school, you need to
it's a consideration.
You need to consider what the due dates are for the assignments that are in general given, and is there a grace period, and how much time there is between usually when assignments are due. So, it's the same type of consideration that you would do in a face-to-face course.
Well, face-to-face, you don't really have that option. You need to be able to keep up. You don't have the opportunity to regulate your learning structure, your instructional environment. The instructor, the face-to-face instructor, is doing that for you, whereas the learner in an online environment has much more freedom to delineate how they feel their preference for learning occurs.
Right, but still assignments are due when they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's still going to be due. You can learn and work through the information however you may desire, as long as you meet the deadlines.
Another thing about, I think, one possible advantage that can be seen in an online course of study is that, especially at the high school level, is that you don't have as many distractions when a course takes place. And by distractions, I mean interactions with students in halls, interactions in the class. If you've got
trying to get from classroom to classroom.
If you have students within a class who are going to be disruptive in the face-to-face course, it's a very common occurrence. That's not going to happen
classroom management
in an online course.
I mentioned that.
It's not going to happen in an online course. It's easier to those types of distractions are easier to avoid. Loudspeaker announcements coming out at any time for semi-important events in the school. Those types of distractions are not going to take place in an online
fire
course.
Drills. Yay, fire drills.
Well, you have to have fire drills. Also, the famous bullying factor. It's very difficult to get
well, there is cyberbullying that occurs.
but it can be immediately dealt with because we know where it's
documented, it's tracked.
It's tracked. It's within the online course, so that is going to be minimal at best. Although I guess it's always possible to have a study. But
you never know.
Those types of factors are one of some of the advantages of being in an online course, and those are things that you should consider when looking at selecting
Add alternatives to the traditional instructional environment.
Well, when considering online secondary schools for high school students, and I think we've come
as
to
well
the
as
end.
looking at the curriculum. Don't forget looking at the curriculum.
Well, of course, we'll look at the curriculum, but
we are coming to the end of the discussion.
We're coming to the end of this discussion and this phase of technology and education today. For Technology and Education Today, I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford. Bye!